Hey everybody, how's it going? Michigan here with another video for you. This time I'm going to be doing episode 2 of taking out various tier 10 vehicles in competitive gameplay. And obviously, as you can see here from the screen, I'm going to be focusing on the Object 268 version 4. This is a very powerful tier 10 Russian tank destroyer that is often the point vehicle on any sort of heavy push down a long corridor or alleyway should there be a lead vehicle. Now, this tank is very strong for a number of reasons. 1, speed, 2, alpha, and 3, armor. This tank has an incredible amount of armor for how fast it can go, making it able to keep up with tanks like the 277 and IS-7, if not exceed them when running the right equipment, and the team follows behind them rather than pushing in front. Now, if we start looking at this armor profile, we are going to be shooting at this 268 version 4 with its own premium rounds, 360, but we can look at 293 just in case. Now, most tanks at tier 10 have 30 millimeters less penetration, but you'll be able to get an idea rather than doing with standard, because with standard, we're not really shooting this in competitive gameplay. So, if we look right at the front, this is how you're going to be encountering the 268 version 4. If you're encountering it from the rear, you should be pretty well off. We don't need to focus about it that much. Obviously, it does have some side armor, 100 millimeters, so it sort of can, I guess, side scrape, but we can pretty much throw that out the window because of how far that gun can move to the left and right. Let's take a look here. 12 degrees to the left, 12 degrees to the right. This means that, let's say it's trying to side scrape around the right corner. It's going to expose its upper hull here, and this curved plate, which is a weak point. So we're not really going to be encountering it. And like I said again, this vehicle is not working corners, it's pushing. So again, let's bring it back to how it was before, looking pretty much straight at you. And how do you deal with this vehicle? Because often the idea of this tank is to take all the hits, because unlike a 277, shells are not going straight through this vehicle's hull. If we look at what appears to be the lower plate, you have a 30% chance, which means this thing, remember, 277 has 330 pen. So 360 pen, only about 1 out of 3 shells, approximately, maybe a little bit more, are going to go through the front. Obviously, on the upper part here, it does have a better shot. However, if you have APCR, you're risking a ricochet, even though it has 300, because of how well sloped that is. So, dealing with it, the front isn't usually the best option, and oftentimes it's rocking back and forth, and you might even be looking up at it, which makes it even a little bit harder. The best way to deal with this thing is just shoot the cupola. Now, it's not a huge target, and some people will say you can kind of overmatch this plate, but it's not worth it, especially when the tank's rocking back and forth like this. It's going to be a nightmare trying to shoot, at this upper spot. Obviously, if you're coming down on it, there's no point in shooting the roof. You can just shoot the hull. So this is the best option. Now, what do you do when there's maybe 8 IS-7/277s or even Chieftains coming behind it? The best thing to do, while also shooting this, is just track the vehicle. Because often what this is going to do is the enemy tanks are going to slam in behind it, or they're going to go around it. Now, let's talk about both options, or both possible scenarios. Let's say you track it and the enemy tanks all get jammed up. Maybe they're coming down the Banana Road on Himmelsdorf, for example. That's going to halt the whole push. And while this tank is stationary, especially if it repairs and then gets tracked again, nothing's going to be able to get around it. And this often causes a lot of confusion in the push, and it allows you to get more effective shots at these weak points here, especially when it isn't able to be hulled down. So that's a great alternative. This thing has pretty big tracks. They're wide, and this does lead to some pretty good ground resistances. So this is not a hard vehicle to track. You do have to hit it once or twice, but when you have good communications, like you should in tier 10 competitive play, that shouldn't be an issue. Once that's dealt with and you track that vehicle, you can start shooting at this cupola. And again, this tank only has 2,000 health, I believe. Let's take a look here. Everything else, 2,000 health. There it is. So it's not going to be able to take a lot of hits. A lot of tanks hit for 490. That, a couple of high rolls, that's 4 shots and this tank is down. Now, also, you might track it and the tank swings sideways. I've seen that before. And now all of a sudden you can go through this front drive wheel and that's the end of that tank. And it's blocking everything else. Let's talk about the second option, which is often what happens most. Is that the enemy tanks will just come on around it. Now, while that halts, that doesn't halt their push very much, now the frontal vehicle, which is normally the focus, is now a 277, which can be easily wiped out. And now all of a sudden you got the 268 version 4, sort of towards the middle or the rear, and it's not as much of a threat because you can clean up the vehicles in front of you, and then you can deal with the version 4 when he eventually shows up. So those are the two main ways. If you are encountering this thing and it's trying to hold a corner or something, the best thing to do, it doesn't have great accuracy, so you can poke against it, rock back and forth behind whatever cover you have or your slope, bait it, and then wait for it to come down. If you sit there and let it aim, it will punish you with 650 damage. Remember, this thing has 360 heat, and while the accuracy base is, let's take a look, 0.4, tankers can get this down depending on your equipment, which you shouldn't be getting it down to 0.35. About 0.36 to 0.38 would be my guess as to where a lot of players have it. So it's not that inaccurate. But again, aim time 2.4 seconds. Remember that goes down to 2.2. But you should be able to outtrade this if you're playing it correctly. But don't let it aim. Remember, this tank also has 5 degrees of gun depression. So what is it really going to do? If it's using its gun depression, this is why I'm saying you want to get out of the habit of shooting this plate. If you can avoid it, you're not penning that plate. You're not penning any of this except for that nice cupola, because that thing sticks way up, and since it's on this frontal part and not the rear, it is alright. One thing should be noted here, if you look at the side profile, if you have a chance, just try not to shoot this side. I mean, you should go through it, but, I've had times where then I've accidentally hit the gun mantlet or something stupid with a gun. I just aim for this big back part. And actually, this rear, you can HE if you have a decent, HE rounds. Especially this back part, 45 millimeters. I love HEing the back of a version 4. So, that's pretty much all I have to say about this vehicle. It's quite rare to come up against, but it is crucial that you deal with this vehicle effectively. Now, one thing to be noted is that these, when it's angled at you, you can get this, but you want to be cautious because of this sort of plate here. It's not the best thing to shoot at, obviously. That's a lot of spaced armor. It's pretty much just solid steel there. So if you are going to do that, you got to shoot for this triangle. But again, if it's coming around a corner like that, just shoot the drive wheel. Or shoot this. This is not a tank that you want to be taking a gamble with. I'm going to try and shoot the corner. It's angled like an IS-7. This is a tank that you cannot overthink when dealing with. Shoot the cupola. Shoot the track. If you got its side, just shoot the back of it. If you've got its rear, whatever. Drive wheel is an easy pen. You can go right through that every time, and because of its limited gun arc, it's never going to be able to hurt you. So I hope you took something from this video. Obviously, it's a shorter one. I want to pack as much information in as I can. If you learned something or you have anything else you want to add, please let me know and everybody else know, for matter of fact, down in those comments. And I will see you tomorrow with the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.